Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining from. I'm Sanjay Bhakta with Marlabs. I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar today regarding disruption in the context of research. Thank you everyone for joining. We will await another half a minute or so, just a few additional seconds, just for others to complete joining, and then we'll begin in just a couple seconds. Just wait just a few additional seconds and we'll begin. Okay, so why don't we go and get started? We do appreciate again everyone for attending our webinar for today. Again, I'm Sanjay Bhakta with Marlabs, Global Head of Enterprise Solutions, background in financial services as well as other industries. I'd like to welcome everyone, and I'm joined by my other fellow panel members. We have Roman Kitov, who will be joining us today. We have Ravi Singh. Ravi heads the digital transformation research at Marlabs, and Roman also comes with a fairly good amount of institutional knowledge, especially from the BFSI and financial services industry. We have Virender Singh, Virender from Iris Media, who will be joining us, Managing Director, again, another veteran within the industry. And we have Prashant from Exponential Machines, and he'll be speaking with regarding AI and machine learning in the context of research. Just a quick context for those who are attending today. We have an approximate breakdown around a little more than half of those who are attending are at least from the research and data analytics insights in terms of roles, and then about the remaining 2/3, if you will, somewhat split between research content technologies as well as operational heads and quants. At this point in time, I would like to turn it over to my fellow panel member, Ravi.
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks for introducing. I'll cover up the research issues and cover it from various perspectives. The research from sponsors, what the sponsors expect, and what the researchers expect from technology, and also introduce the technology solution framework for researcher. I think the key challenge, there are so many challenges a researcher faces, and I come with a research background myself, heading equity research. There are a number of challenges which a researcher faces, but one of the key challenges that he's facing today, in today's world, is researching with speed and accuracy in a multidimensional data world, which is increasing in terms of the size, the variety of data, and the velocity of data. In just under 60 seconds, you can see how the information explodes all across the sources of information that a researcher has to go through. And the objective of the researcher it has always been speed and accuracy, working through vast span of data to support decisioning. So if you look at from the sponsor's perspective, the key expectation of a sponsor, in today's world where decisive cultures are emerging, not only if you look at just the e-commerce giants like Amazon or investment banks like Morgan Stanley, social media, the governments like China, who are expected to be #1 in global research in probably next 5 years to 10 years, and the fast-paced world of entertainment that needs technology from screenwriting to production. Competitive research with speed and agility is a given today. What's important is the researcher is expected to bring in demand insights at the decisioning point converge vast unstructured and bring in all these structured data sources together so that the decision maker can take an informed decision. So if you look at multiple attributes of research and across the sectors, government to medical, contract research organizations, university, market, real estate, media and ads, and e-commerce and capital markets, the intensity of speed of research is highest towards capital market in dark blue. It lessens as the color lightens up. And similarly, the other attributes such as ease of access, the revenue metrics, the compliance intensity, the new services on demand that they're demanding today, the leverage of artificial intelligence, reviews and collaboration, references, checkups on contradictions of the research, mobile and multilingual societies of data, workflow and the distribution. We can see from pure sciences to applied sciences how the funders and the researchers have to work through these parameters. So just looking at the researchers at work from technology, these are just some of the things that they are looking at. Flexibility, speed and adaptability, content delivery. They expect that the technologists are observing the research behavior and produce smarter tools to help them. So today, what we are trying to focus today is to provide you a solution framework of technologies that will help research, and two fundamental technologies that we would like to introduce from Marlabs' perspective in helping the researchers in being more efficient in their journey is a tool that will help in collaborative digital content workflow from design to distribution, and also provide in some of the intelligent tools, intelligent automation platforms from data extraction to enrichment and intelligent use of artificial intelligence in machine language, exponential machines. So there is the empowerment of research journey, which is at the core of it, that we are looking at in terms of empowering it all along the journey. I'll not get into all the details. We can circulate the information after this webinar. But at this point of time, I would like to turn this over to my colleague, or let me get into a Paul and see your point of view.
So as we await the responses from our poll, we'd just like to share some insights of what we've seen from industry, if you will. Examples would be here at Marlabs, we work with a variety of customers, different industries, as it pertains to where they are in their journey of adaptation of a cognitive platform, content services, whether you're at the earliest stages, whether you're in the decision-making, selection, somewhere in the middle, or happens to be potentially towards the more of a mature organization, the latter, the fatter tail, if you will, of a distribution. Some of the challenges that we're observing and that we'll be sharing today, they do stem, if you will, from data. Obviously, the quality of the data is going to dictate the types of insights and the quality of the research that you'd be given. Just any thoughts from any of my panel members? Roman, if you'd like to share some insights.
So yes, hi, thank you. My name is Roman. While the poll is ongoing, I'll take a moment to introduce myself. So I bring to this table 2 decades of investment banking experiences with emphasis on technology, where I wore many hats, anywhere from developer to system architect to ultimately chief technology officer. The task had to do with delivering products into a very volatile, strict regulatory environment. And I think in this discussion, we will dwell into challenges that have to do with not just choosing the right tools, but choosing them in accordance with the strict compliance framework that is bestowed, in particular, on investment banking, at least from my perspective. I also had the pleasure of chairing a technology work group. It was for RICSML. It's a nonprofit committed to finding industry standards by bringing together all major research shops in the investment banking world Members included Deutsche Bank, JP Morgan, Goldman, Morgan Stanley, Bloomberg, Thomson, among many others. So this experience gave me a unique perspective and appreciation for the needs and challenges of the industry and the technical ask.
Thank you, Roman. Appreciate the insights. We'd like to just quickly share results of our poll. Looks as though about 71% of those who are attending today, in terms of the source of disruption, stems around technology, 57% around regulations, 14% customers, close to 30% around competition, and around 14% other. So obviously through the discussions, I think we're all in alignment as it relates to one of the key disruptors being technology. So I think this would be at this juncture, we'll turn it over to another fellow panelist again, Roman.
So actually, it's interesting to see that the poll reflected the top 2 points seem to be technology and regulatory, which is actually of no surprise. Technology, as I touched on earlier, key is selecting the right tools and having what you need at your disposal, and of course, regulatory. So let me touch on regulatory before we move into technology, because technology, I think, is key, and that's the main topic of this discussion. So regulatory, what I would say about regulatory is to not resist it. It's here, it's war, it is and always will be. Find a way to work within regulatory constraints and a way to perhaps to monetize them. Maybe it sounds idealistic, yes, but I will give you an example. So over the last few years, there were strict mandates from our friends over the pond, Euro, in light of MiFID regulations. So MiFID was first looked at as this big monster that is looking to infringe on our way to the business and also put massive strain on our technology budget and technological ask. That said, after doing poll after poll and seeing how various banks deal with it, they found interesting revenue streams in MiFID. For instance, link back. Again, regulatory constraints paired with right technologies will allow you to do just that. So we started using in Deutsche Bank IDOS Media for our authoring platform. That allowed us to do less PDF, which is a static format, and move more towards XML, HTML content, which allowed us to parse reports and put us in the position to withdraw very valuable information. So it wasn't just did the client read the report or not, but how far did they get? How much information did they derive from it? Did they go past first, second, third page, or did they find all 100 pages useful? So again, that is not implemented yet, but this is an example of how regulatory, compliance, and technology can work together to help us monetize these kinds of regulations. So just short 20 years ago, or a little over 20 years ago, Bill Gates in 1996 came up and said that content is king. Within 20 years, we narrowed it down to data. So now an important subset, a structured subset of content, data, is becoming king. And that feeds very well into our next panelist that will elaborate on the use of structured content by applying tools like machine learning and artificial intelligence. And going back to the second, I would say the first response, and that's technology. So let me bring up a slide where I will touch on what goes into the thought process of choosing the right technology. So there's I guess, five major components. That's productivity, quality, delivery, cost reduction, and competition. So productivity being first and foremost, and I'm not going to read off what I put on the slides. You could see that, so I'll just elaborate. So productivity, of course, all of us, regardless of the industry, whether you are in investment banking, media company, or just a research shop, you would like to reuse your published content. If you publish it in a PDF static format, it becomes increasingly difficult unless you keep soft copies of it. And that just becomes messy from both regulatory compliance and just logistics standpoint. So using the right tools that can keep your content in a structured format yet easily accessible is key. So from productivity, I would say reusing content is very important. Other components mostly I think pertain to the investment bank industry, so I'll skip those. Quality. So if you are able to produce content in a structured format and not static PDF, you're able to automate scans, automate searches, make your reports better searchable by putting tags in place that will tag countries, industries, companies, etc. And again, reuse helps with quality because you're taking the human element out of it and less likely to make a typo or basically, again, improving quality. Delivery, the third one. So being able to deliver content in a way that adheres to industry standards, which again used to be PDF and now more and more shifting to a more structured way, is key. So being able to redesign your report to match industry standard is very important. And again, having it in a non-static format as PDF makes it very easy, inexpensive. It cuts back on human capital as far as human involvement and reduces error rate. As far as cost reduction concerned, I think that this pertains to all industries, regardless who you are, whether you're in bank, whether you're in the media industry, pharmaceuticals, or academia. Cost is key. So having the right tools, needless to say, will cut on cost. So by having a tool that is more generic, that is easier to support, cuts back on the technological footprint and other dependencies on it. And of course, competition. So as much as we want to be outliers and we want to stand out from competition, we don't want to do that on the technological level. Because again, once you have proprietary tools, they're difficult to maintain, difficult to integrate, and difficult to add new plugins and tools into that. So that's actually where we want to be the same. But we want to stand out on the content production level. And that is a good segue into the trend that we see towards data. So if you are able to really, actually no, let me pedal back to competition. So for instance, just over 10 years ago, everybody was Microsoft Word. See, that goes to show you that we were not looking to compete on the technological level. I mean, essentially, what is our core competence? Build versus buy. So doesn't matter what industry does in terms of building. Essentially, we're buying the common software to deliver our products. It used to be Microsoft that was the lowest. I would think don't want to use lowest common denominator, but that was definitely a common denominator, Microsoft. So, but Microsoft excelled in producing static content. Right now, we are in the new world of digital, dynamic content, yet structured. So that is, I guess I will finish off with underlying, this is the reason why picking a right product for your business is essential, and to not be an outlier in the technology that you choose, so it's easier to maintain, support, and service. So with this, I will pass this along to my colleague to elaborate on this last thought. Thank you.
So thank you, Roman. Appreciate the industry perspective, especially coming from the financial sector itself. Greatly appreciate the types of challenges, especially when it comes to technologies, which is what we're going to be focusing on today. I'd like to welcome the next panelist, Virender. Thank you, Virender, again for joining us. Over to you, Virender.
Thanks, Roman and Sanjay. Welcome to all attendees. As we heard through the poll that we took, the major disruption in your business is coming through three levers, if I may say: technology, competition, and regulation. And as Roman pretext his conversation and his experience having to choose a platform that serves the business needs, those seem to align very well in terms of what we heard from you. And just taking that further, marrying that to the drivers, the value drivers that Ravi introduced in the beginning: ease of access, speed of delivery of research. All of that is very critical to your business because you want to have a competitive advantage. You want to be able to have a platform that enables you to achieve that speed and being able to meet and comply with all of the regulatory compliance rules. And that's where we've been fortunate enough in this industry over the last 20 years. While evolving the platform technologically, we've been able to deliver excellent results for our customers. And that's where IDOS Media as a platform comes in. We are a company that has the content services platform, which has produced stellar results for the customers listed here, some of the key clients. Today, more than 8,000 research professionals globally are creating, producing, enhancing, and distributing their research using our platform. And they span across industries, be it financial services investment research, be it legislative or scientific research, be it market research. The key aspects that we learned is how fast can you get your research done and out in the market so you gain the necessary competitive advantage. And we've been able to deliver that kind of success to our customers. Some of the metrics includes reducing your speed, reducing your time to market, wherein some of our customers have increased their efficiencies by 3x and their speed by 3x in terms of going to time to market as well as time to value. As we move along, what you see on your screens is the ecosystem of context and content that our platform provides. If you look at the disruptors or the key drivers that you provided us through the poll, as well as the market that Ravi and Roman talked about, there are sources of data for your research, be it structured data or unstructured data, as well as your internal systems. You would need a platform to be able to orchestrate your research that allows you to manage, create, curate, and distribute your content, yet have the workflow that orchestrates your business process. So that way you are compliant with your regulatory requirements, yet be able to achieve that speed. And that's what this platform has been able to provide to the market, as we covered in our previous discussion. So be it any kind of data, the platform is able to ingest and process that data. It is an ecosystem, so it is able to work with your existing, let's say, AI or ML initiatives. So from that perspective, you can leverage on your existing investment, yet work with a cohesive ecosystem of platforms delivering the results that you need. As Roman was earlier stating, research for a long time was stuck in PDFs, and all we know is today context and content is all dynamic. So you should be able to produce your content and distribute your content in real time and be able to move at the speed of data. And that's what we are able to provide. As you could see on the right-hand side of of this picture, we deliver content in any and every format across all channels in real time. The platform is XML native, which really lends itself to all the regulatory requirements, as be it in healthcare or life sciences, be it in banking, financial services, all the regulatory bodies require you to have reporting which is XML compliant, which is the basis of our platform, and that's how we've been able to evolve over time and produce those results for our customers. Um, in terms of leveraging on your own investments in terms of newer technologies that deal with alternate data, we provide an ecosystem and a library of APIs that helps you integrate without having to create spaghetti of integrations as you evolve your ecosystem, yet deliver the results that you need from a finance perspective. So, quite frankly, given the results that we've been able to achieve and what we've heard from you, this platform can really help you expedite and enhance your journey in making your research more productive and drive your top line and bottom line targets. Okay. And lastly, just to give you some flavor in terms of the platform in action, as you could see from a number of different views, the platform becomes your single window which can integrate the entire ecosystem, be it artificial intelligence. So some of the customers have leveraged AI to do semantic analysis, driving on the sentiment you want to drive through your research, natural language processing and generation, so that you can use this technology to produce more effective research for you, and automation in terms of metadata, auto tagging, the whole 9 yards, and be able to integrate your sources of data like statistical models, which are very critical in scientific research as well as in quantitative research. So if you look at it, the platform provides you an ecosystem that enables to do your jobs faster and get ahead of the competition. And with that, I'll hand over to our moderator.
Thank you very much, Varinder. So I'd like to invite those who are attending today. Please feel free to utilize the tabs within the webinar to ask questions, whether it's through the chat or through the questions tab. Regardless, I know that we've already received a variety of questions so far. So just again, Varinder, thank you, and Roman, thank you. Before we go to our next panelist, if I may just quickly interject, I would say that in terms of many of the challenges that many of us face today, especially when it comes to research, and we talk about content curation, creation, and I'm sure that some of my panelists, such as Varinder and Roman, would agree with me, is that we say content is king, data is king, right? But when it comes to the right platform, it's not so much a product story in 2019, 2020, as well as over the next 5 years. It's not about so much a product. And I don't believe it's so much about a Microsoft Word versus a Microsoft Excel. What we're observing in the industry is really that ecosystem. And that ecosystem consists of and is hosted on a platform that consists of a variety of services, if you will, more of a plug and play. So choosing the right platform is going to be critical in the success of your journey over the next 5 years. And all we could attest to, if you will, is many of the war stories that we could share. We would look forward to future conversations with those who are attending today. But just a quick set of insights, at least from the pragmatics, indicating yes, there are a variety of challenges that relates to content. How do you go about curating your data, organizing it, structuring it, being able to enable the research, and thus a quick segue into our next panelist who is joining us today, who is Prashant. Prashant, thank you for joining as well. I would like to invite you to take us to the next journey within the webinar.
Thanks, Sanjay, and thanks, Roman, Virendra, and Ravi. I think the perspective and the context that you said is very appropriate, and thanks, Virendra, for handing over exactly where we need to start. Is now, given the variety of data that's available and the velocity with which it changes, I think the big key is how can you apply it and to a large set of publications that you need to do, whether it's on PDFs, as Roman was indicating, or on a website or on blogs. And fundamentally, this aspect of being able to automatically process data and process content, convert it into data, and then find patterns happens both in terms of being able to ingest information, make sense of it, extract relevant information, make sense of it, and eventually publish and provide contextual uh, content to each one that is consuming it. For example, if we take the same financial services use case and we talk about wealth management, my investment portfolio as a client will need a different kind of content and presentation versus a client that probably deals with uh, green stocks only, right? So that contextual understanding of one, the consumer of content, and two, the ability to adapt and modify content automatically to relevantly provide information is a big process in this whole value created from artificial intelligence. So the some of the use cases Virendra already spoke about in terms of auto tagging content, extracting sentiment from content coming from multiple sources, down to basically generating portions or snippets of information, help in really automating and reducing the amount of work that human researchers need to do. And the assistance that technology is able to provide helps people get more efficient and effective in kind of applying uh, the knowledge extracted out of this information uh, onto research, as I was saying. So across the different industries, we've seen research being applied. I mean, there's a lot of use cases that we've done in terms of reading, right from reading medical charts and finding patterns that work well for life sciences companies, and to identify clinical trial cohorts, down to basically in the financial services, capital markets, in identifying the right kind of information that should be leveraged within a new research that an analyst is doing, down to market research where competitive analysis and identifying competitive moves or competitor moves in the market space itself, and identifying the differentiated messaging are key. And AI has been applied using our tool and using a combination of IDOs and what we provide in enabling these solutions. So what we provide as a basic technology is a lot of what uh, Virendra was mentioning in terms of being able to orchestrate multiple AI services that enable data sourcing, the ability to capture multiple data formats and information from multiple sources, basically having a semantic understanding of the language and information that is received in unstructured format, ability to extract this unstructured data into a structured format, so that you can apply models and artificial intelligence in classifying and providing recommendations on that information. And we provide as a company a very rapid development, and in partnership with IDOS, a concept to basically having it ready in production takes as little as 8 weeks, and most of our engagements get into production in about in less than 4 months, right? So we deliver it. We deliver this technology for multiple solutions across the spectrum, basically in a very simple model called 1, 2, 3. So there is a 1 week for discovering the problem and identifying what is the solution needed. There is 2 weeks in which the same problem is implemented on a sandbox cloud environment using data that we've been able to source. And then 3 months, actually it's not 3 weeks, but 3 months to essentially build the production ready solution using data from the client. And what does that means is the models that exist that have already been trained are retrained or trained with additional information coming from the client, and that enables it to be very contextual and relevant to the problem that they're solving. So if you take a case of engagement analytics for consumption of content and consumption of research, then we basically have models that can understand exactly where a user is spending time, what kind of content has a higher affinity for different user. So for a marketing officer, a CMO, for example, you might be looking at what the competition is doing versus a revenue officer, maybe looking at the numbers that and the breakdown of numbers that different competitors are getting in their service offerings and stuff. So it's very contextual to the user that is consuming the content, and the engagement analytics kind of drives a view into the different users and buckets them in different cohorts or clusters, providing them more engagement. So that's a brief summary of the technology, the method in which we execute, and also the use cases that have been delivered across multiple industries. So Sanjay, I hand it over to you, unless and feel free to add any more that you want to add to this conversation.
Sure, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Prashant. If I may, so what you've just indicated, I do believe, and I believe Ravi had shared earlier in the webinar, there was a depiction of a customer journey, and in that customer journey map, to sort of speak, there are a variety of personas, right, who are within this research field. Uh, I would say that that as it pertains to research, when I was just mentioning data is king. I think the other, I must say, would be the analytics. And Prashant, I'm sure that you may agree with me on this one. Is that I think there's a misconception that out of the box, you can just quickly, in 5 minutes or so, you can quickly start ingesting data, gaining some insights, learning from it, and then now all of a sudden, we've now curated, created content, and now magically the output is a research report, in minutes. That's not exactly how things are realized. Any thoughts you'd like to share on that context, Prashant, just as it pertains to the analytics, and then I think we should go into
Yeah, I think Sanjay, you bring up a very valid point, because I think you get to, and I think the bane or the opportunity with artificial intelligence itself is that the generalization of AI and applicability of it within the industry is kind of overstated. It's always a much deeper problem. So you get an accuracy of between 70 to 80% out of the box when you pre-train models with similar content. But please understand, for most enterprise consumption or any risk-based consumption, the accuracy has to be north of 90% and at a minimum. And when you kind of look at that, the only way you get it north of 90% to acceptable levels within an enterprise setting is by training it with data specific to that setting. So some customers will have a lot of data that you can train and improve the quality. On the other side, on the flip side of the story, most of the advances in AI are happening when it is consumed for consumers, where even a 70% is fair for the consumers deciding whether they want to use it or not. So a lot of the recommendations that you see and a lot of AI, you will see happening in consumer facing services such as Netflix, Amazon, Apple. all of these guys kind of push it without the fear of a risk of a false positive, as you may. So a false positive is when an unexpected recommendation got thrown up and it is actually not accurate, is a false positive. And most consumer um, industry solutions are comfortable having false positives. The same is not true for enterprise solutions and more mission critical solutions, even like the automatic driving solutions that are nowadays making themselves available in the consumer side. So there is, as you said, I think there is a level of detail and level of accuracy that you would need, which comes from historical data that is available within enterprises and which then provide more context to these enterprises.
Thank you, Prashant. Definitely appreciate and respect your point of view as well as the insights. Would like to share just with our audience today from the quick poll, the second, in terms of realizing value from digital technologies like AI. Approximately 60% have indicated they have yet to realize the value, and about 40% have indicated that yes, they have realized. So, if I may, Virendra, any thoughts so far in terms of what we're speaking about in terms of the analytics, in terms of research coming back to content services, some of the results from these earlier polls, Virendra?
Yeah, and thanks for that question. Based on what we've seen from these polls as well as our experience, uh, the value customers derive from the technologies as well as research really falls into two buckets. One is adoption of the technology that you purchased or built, and second is leverage of that technology in terms of impact to your business. And the value is driven when both of these parameters work in unison. What we've seen in a few cases where customers have yet to realize the benefits or value from, let's say, technologies like AI, the real let's say, blocker or an impediment there is the adoption of technology married to the business result. And that's where I think bringing in the business KPIs and the technology KPIs that are aligned together as we implement technology and measure and manage them, that's very important. And that's the key learning I would say I have taken through my experience working through this.
Thank you, Virendra. Appreciate your thoughts, your insights as well. And obviously, Virendra, as Prashant and Roman and Ravi themselves, equally respected within industry. If I may, we have received a significant number of questions uh, with what you just mentioned in terms of the ROI. Let me quickly turn over one question over to you, Virendra. One of our attendees is asking, what are the estimated timelines that an organization can expect before they realize that ROI?
So let me answer that in basically two parts. Uh, what we have experienced in the work that we've done with our customers is the time to value parameter. From a time to value perspective, you could start realizing the value in as early as fifth month of your implementation. As Prashant had alluded, we can go live in 4 months and have your, let's say, MVP start delivering results. But on an average, I would say the ROI resultant, which is of significant business impact, we've seen between 12 to 18 months. That's when customers really start deriving the value, and the value is split into the efficiencies that they gain from within their operations because what the technology enables, and second is it allows them to do innovation faster. So the more faster you are innovating, you are ahead of the competition. So that's the ROI metrics we've been measuring ourselves to.
Thank you, Virendra. And I would definitely presume that as it pertains to accumulating the ROI, it's sort of like a compounded interest, right? It's something that's going to accumulate over a period of time, and then, if you will, lo and behold, you're within 6 to 12 months of your journey, and now you've accumulated that ROI. Thank you, Virendra, for that question. Uh, we've got a question. I'm going to ask Prashant here. Prashant, we've got a question around demystification of AI ML, and because obviously there are a lot of misconceptions. What are your thoughts in terms of what are some of those misconceptions, and how would we provide some thought leadership, provide some suggestions to our audience?
So I think the big thing, right, is I've been in this space for some time now, about 12 years, way before it was called AI or this whole wave of intelligence that's come in now. And I don't have any challenges, or I totally appreciate the wave that is there. My point of view, and I think our experience basically is the biggest challenge is it's not a button. I think there is a thought that needs to go behind application of AI for value in business processes themselves, and the perception of trying to use this as a panacea for all evil is probably what is being pushed a little bit in today's market. I think the big deal is the ability to kind of understand that there is a need for good quality data. There is a need to change business processes so that the outliers and the exceptions can be handled. And the third piece of it is uh, there will be projects that fail, and that's from our experience of executing more than 50 projects in the last 5 6 years. But the ones that succeed have so much lift. So our experience is that you got to factor in about 20% of the projects not going through, and in that sense, I think the best practice that we've evolved over time and customers benefit from is to have really short and quick MVPs that verify and check for proof of value before the larger investment is made. So if you take all of these aspects that I just mentioned, we've seen the success rate go up and people start benefiting a lot more.
Thank you, Prashant. And actually, coincidentally, as you're speaking, one of the questions we've received is around should those who are attending, should even the best platform around AI, ML, NLP, even selecting that so-called best platform to structure the content, where would you see the gaps in consumption, which happens to be mostly manual?
Yeah, I think our experience has, I mean, we've done a little bit of work with IDOS, and I say little because IDOS has been in business for some time now, and we've been engaged with them for the last 6 to 9 months. So, in context of the long life cycle they have with their clients and history with them, our engagement or association is much shorter. And I think the big piece is the some of the technology is still not completely foolproof, right? And so I think we've seen that you have to use an ensemble of technologies to enable the value to be extracted. And it's not basically saying I have the best library or the best tool that is available. I think it's more the technology is mature for some use cases where you're able to understand information up to a particular uh, uh, percentage. And for some use cases, the technology is not yet completely mature, and an understanding of what technology can be applied to the use case. So examples that we've talked about: auto tagging, extraction of summarized information, understanding actions from users, applying context of user preferences back into content, reorganizing, reordering content for each individual. All of these are tremendous use cases that have provided a great amount of lift for end consumers. But we've also seen some experiments go too far, trying to automatically generate a high quality research. That's not going to happen. I mean, you can get summarization and generation of content in small chunks that can be assembled, but knowing the constraint is probably key, and combining multiple available technologies and existing platform or libraries, if you may, is really the approach that solves at the best quality and accuracy. And I don't think there is one tool that solves it. Most people, even if you look at all the guys that promise the solution for the world, actually on their back end consume from multiple such libraries and tools. And as far as we're concerned at Exponential Machines, that's been our strategy that has worked really well for more than 10 different really large clients, the Fortune 50 clients that we have.
Thank you, Prashant. Roman, we have a question, I think that is in your neck of the woods to sort of speak around, regarding your experiences going through this journey of content services as well as a cognitive platform, AI, ML. What sort of advice or lessons learned, could you share with those that are listening?
So thank you. That's actually a very interesting question. And having just rolled out the new authoring system, it's very close to heart. So there was an interesting slap of reality where when we survey people, what do you want from the new platform? And everybody says stability, performance, ease of implementation, flexibility. Well, what I've learned is that one word, flexibility, has to be weighed against all the others. So what we realize is that when rolling out a platform, you really have to assess who's going to be consuming it. And while everybody wants flexibility, we have to realize that flexibility comes at cost of all the other elements that I just named, like ease of implementation, stability, and performance. The moment you start making your platform, customizing your platform, making it unrecognizable what it was out of the box, i.e. making it more flexible for your user, you do trade-off, you do lose on ease of implementation, you do lose on stability and ability to support it in an adequate manner. So for all those that are on this journey right now, I would urge you to think hard about how flexible do you really want your platform to do and how much you're willing to trade off for that flexibility. Because here's what I found. Because it will slow you down, it will make it more difficult to roll out. So I would say 80-20 rule for everybody concerned. If you could achieve 80% by applying 20% of effort, do that. And the second tier, I would say, a good learning experience was building forward. Really, really know your ecosystem. Clean the house before rolling it out. Because a lot of times we're all building, many investment banks have been in business for a long time, and they inherently have a lot of legacy platforms, legacy software and hardware. So it's really important before you start making such massive changes, like rolling out a new authoring system, for instance, really clean house. Consider the data that's going to go into that platform and clean it up. It may take a while, but you will have better results on the tail end. And as far as building forward, consider the entire roadmap. Don't just have a knee-jerk reaction to, there's this cool product, AI product that I want to implement. See what's going to feed into that. Make sure data is clean. Make sure all the integration points that will touch that product are accounted for and are built to spec. So again, it might seem like an initial investment, maybe steep in the beginning, but it's going to pay you manyfold on implementation and sustainability of the platform. So I would say those two are the main lessons: sustainability, flexibility, and building forward. Know your ecosystem.
Thank you, Roman. We've got a question for Ravi, just in terms of the average sentiment that researchers encounter in adopting a platform.
Yeah, so in terms of automation and adoption of a platform, it's largely the drive to converge the data. Only 56% of the data is currently digitized. The rest remains in multilingual pools of data, and we should not forget that the fastest climbing researcher today in the world is not going to be U.S. very soon. It's going to be China. It's going to be the Asian countries, and the trends are pointing towards that. The rate at which they are growing is going to be towards the Asian countries like China. So if you look at some of the areas such as 5G, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence, the deep learning, these are the areas where the deep pools of knowledge is still locked in. And the researcher is essentially trying to take these data and converge it to the decisioning point. And there are very few tools which are available today, which helps the researcher to bring them all together and bring them to a decision point.
Thank you, Ravi. If I may, just injecting some additional sets of insights and sharing some additional experiences. Some of the things that we've observed again here at Marlabs and working with both IDOS as well as exponential machines is the common challenges of there's a specific timeline that needs to be met to be able to achieve the specific goal of producing some form of content that's going to be consumable in possibly a report. With the expectation of a rollout anywhere from maybe either 3 months to 9 months, it is a journey, and that journey will have any sort of sets of obstacles along the way, just like any form of a technology. But some of the key learnings, that we've observed collectively with our partnerships, again, with both IDOS Media as well as Exponential Machines, it does come down to data, but also comes down to what is the goal? What is it that you are intending on achieving? What is the pseudo end state look like? So if you think about a customer journey of, with a researcher being the primary persona, and in that journey, the specific stages as it pertains to curating, assimilating content, creating content, and then as you're going about the different stages of creating the content, merging all of that information together. At the end of the day, if you will, we're going from a maturity curve from data at the lower end to information somewhere in the middle to at the upper end of, or if you will, of a plateau, the insights. And in those three stages, while we say data is king and keeping data clean, it also comes down to having the end goal in mind and executing in the form of iterations. And as Virendra had mentioned in terms of KPIs, measuring with that yardstick of these are the specific metrics that I'm going to be ensuring along my journey that I am headed in that trajectory of success. You're going down that right path. You've got the specific metrics around, okay, pertaining to data quality. Here's the quality. Here are the specific quantitative metrics in terms of information. Here's how I'm measuring not just the amount of information, but the variety of information. Enabling a platform to be able to support you in this journey is going to be essential. And choosing the right platform is going to be paramount to the success of the business value that you're going to be delivering to your customers. So, in conclusion, would like to just thank my fellow panelists, Ravi, Roman, Virender, as well as Prashant, in joining us today to not only share experiences, but articulating what does it really take, the framework to a successful journey, to being able to achieve that business value, to being able to accelerate along that journey, and sharing the experiences of the set of possibilities. So we'd like to thank you all for attending today. We did receive additional sets of questions, and what we would like to do, at the conclusion hereafter is obviously share the material that was presented today, and those questions that we were unable to provide responses for, we will aggregate those and provide them in a consumable format as well. We thank you for your time. Appreciate you joining us and taking time out of your day today. We welcome you in our future webinars to come, which is going to be focused around different sets of experiences, an additional series on the topic of content services, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. On behalf of Marlabs, Sanjay Bhakta would like to really extend our gratitude. Thank you again. Have a good day, a good afternoon, and a good night. Thank you all.